Vinny Tortorich here. Hey man, if you're a fan of Izzy, you might be a fan of me too. I'm the guy that gets people to lose a lot of weight. I have something free for you guys. This is no clickbait. Just go to VinnyTortorich.com and there's a big banner. It's a free PDF, how to lose weight. It's an intro guide to NSNG at VinnyTortorich.com. Go check it out exclusively for anyone who listens to Izzy Presley. Thank you.
Replay Guitar Exchange is your premier independent guitar store. Being independent is good. With all of the major brands, including new, vintage, and pre-owned, you can find the guitar, bass, amp, or accessory you are dreaming of. From vintage to the newest models, Replay Guitar Exchange can help you find that perfect piece. They have industry veteran expert staff, all players like you down to the owner. You aren't just getting a great guitar, you're getting the Replay difference. Find them online at replayguitar.com and find your dream guitar today.
Hey ladies, Sass Pants Designs will take that rock shirt that everyone has and make it your own in a flattering, sassy, and simple way. There are one-of-a-kind tank tops, lace-up tees, and tube top dresses already in stock. Check out the online store at sasspantsdesigns.com and like Sass Pants Designs on Facebook for special offers and custom orders. That's sasspantsdesigns.com, sasspantsdesigns.com. Sass Pants will make you the envy of the party.
Hi, this is Bobby Brown, and welcome to another fucking podcast.
You kids with your loud music and your Dan Fogelberg, your Zima, hula hoops, and Pac-Man video games, don't you see? People today have attention spans that can only be measured in nanoseconds.
See, son, old legends never die. They just lose weight.
Like a legend and an out-of-work bum with a lot of life.
Hello, you crazy dead fucker!
Party time!
Yes, it is party time. Hello, Hollywood. Hello, world. Hello, my loyal minions. It is good to see you, and as always, good to be seen. Izzy Presley here on another effing podcast. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for being had, everybody. Got a great show lined up for you today. Doing a retro show. Bringing one back because, well, I'm posting this on the 21st of November 2018, and tomorrow, Thanksgiving, is the 22nd. If you use your math, there it is. And November 22nd, 2018 is the 55th anniversary of the Kennedy assassination. And we broke this down a couple years ago with Big John Murray, you know, from Rock of Love. You know him as a security guy from all the cruises and all that stuff. And the reason I had Big John come on about it is because he's a Marine. He's I can't say former Marine because once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine. So that would make John a ballistics expert, and that would make John a firearms expert. And I had him watch this documentary that I came across called The Smoking Gun. And it looks at forensics and it looks at ballistics and the science behind what happened that fateful day 55 years ago on Dealey Plaza. And what's wrong with the Warren Commission, with their findings, what's right with their findings. And it's very, very interesting. If you have not seen that documentary, do me a favor. Pause this podcast. Go, because we're not live, so it doesn't matter. Pause this podcast, go to YouTube and put in JFK, the Smoking Gun, and watch this documentary. It will blow your mind. It is, in my mind, I mean, nobody knows the truth for sure. But in my mind, this is the best explanation of what happened that day in Dallas, the day that John F. Kennedy was murdered, assassinated. So I wanted to replay this interview with John because he brings a very expert look at this. And, we talk about that. And he makes another proclamation about Martin Luther King, which is fucking mind-blowing. But yeah, we're going to play that in the second half of the show. make sure you do check out all the social media at Real Izzy Presley for Twitter, Instagram, and the Entertainment Facebook page. And, of course, the Facebook page for this show is Another Effing Podcast. Follow me. I'll follow back. And I do want to give out a big thank you. This is a very humbling and embarrassing couple weeks for me. I put it out there as a rant. And a little narcissistic woe is me rant, I guess you could say. Sometimes it just happens. That's what happens on social media, and I do my best not to do that kind of stuff because I know it's fucking annoying. But I was repoed. And we talked about this a little bit on the last podcast with Brandon Cook from Black and Blue. I was repoed. My car got repoed. And I was shitting myself. I had somebody borrowed me a $1,000 to make a payment, which I did. And it didn't post. And apparently, the repo order had came in, or repo approval had come in the month before. No idea, because I haven't heard from the bank or whatever. And I usually just ignore the phone calls because I know I'm going to pay them eventually at some point. Well, Sunday comes around and boom, they yank my car. And, it's like I said, I've said on Monsters of Rock Radio, which you can hear me mornings, night, from 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. California time, live via satellite worldwide. So check that out. Monsters of Rock, free satellite on the Dash Radio Network. Monsters of Rock channel, that's what I'm on. And I talked about this openly. I mean, I believe in being honest with listeners. I believe in being honest about this kind of stuff. There's no reason to hide from it. And it's my own fault, and I'm the first to admit it. But I put it out there, and like I said on the morning show, and I think I said this on the podcast last week, I learned a very important lesson, other than just, pay your bills. I just have to keep working harder, making more money, and not get behind on shit. Those are lessons. But the other lesson that I learned, and this, I think people need to take this to heart. I mean, you see it online. You see people just lose their fucking minds, and they bitch and they bitch and they yell and they complain, and it does no good. When it's nothing you can change. And the thing that I learned, and the thing that I did with talking to the bank and talking to the tow truck driver and the repo company and the lot where the car was held, and even my bank, was that there's no point in yelling. There's no point in getting pissed. You can be frustrated as all hell, but these people, they're just doing their jobs. And this isn't small town America anymore. This isn't Sheboygan, Wisconsin, where your banker down at the corner credit union. It's not like that anymore. It's big business. It's a loan. And if you don't exactly pay off that loan, they come in, or pay on that loan, I should say, they come and take it from you. And there was no reason to yell at the tow truck driver because he's just doing his job. Yes, I was frustrated. Yes, I was in shock. But there's no point in getting worked up about it. I came inside and I almost cried a little bit, but it's like, fuck. Now what? And I put the post up. Look, this is all my own fault. There's no doubt about it. All my own fault. And if I tried to say anything different, that would be a lie. That would be a huge lie. My own fault. And I put the post up, and I'm going to say this. And I am extremely humbled and thankful for the family that is the Monsters of Rock Cruisers. Somebody said, "Well, what's your PayPal? I'll put it up in the group page." And I'm like, no, don't. I don't want to be that guy that's begging for money on the internet, which it probably looked like I was, but I wasn't. And I said it. I said the truth. It's like, shit, where, anybody know where I can, sell a chunk of a liver or a kidney or a testicle? Because I need to come up with $1,100. Like, now. I need to get my car back now. One, because I need to go work. Two, I need to get to Vegas to host a party and get paid. And within the matter of 6 hours, I got more than enough money to get that taken care of. I told people to stop, and they kept sending the money. And thank you. That's all I can say. I don't know what else to say. I don't know how else to say it, but thank you. I'm humbled. I am embarrassed. And it is what it is. But the fact that people that some people I don't even know stepped up and said, how can I help? That means a lot. And one thing that I did do, because there was a little extra cash, I went and a friend of mine here in Los Angeles by the name of Robbie Jeanette, he lost everything in the fires in the canyon up here. House, everything. I donated to his GoFundMe as kind of a pay it forward and giving back. And it's another thing I learned too, is that I have to start doing that more often. And the fact that the listeners and the Monsters of Rock cruisers came through from, and I didn't ask for it. I mean, I didn't say I wouldn't accept it. I mean, of course, I willingly put my PayPal address out there, izzypresley@yahoo.com, if you want to donate to the show. It's a weird feeling because nobody likes to ask for help. Nobody likes to be in that situation where you're fucked if you don't. And I've been in that situation a couple times, and it's horrible. And you don't want to ask people. You don't want to be that guy, It's part of life. It's happened a couple times with a couple deaths in the family where I've had to go home on a whim, and I didn't have the money to go home, and people either gave me their miles or they paid for my flight or borrowed me money, which I haven't paid back yet because I'm a fucking Lyft driver. And I'm extremely, extremely, extremely humbled, and thank you. Just thank you. I don't know how else to say it, but thank you. Okay? All right. So here's looking forward to a new year, a new successful year, and not getting fucking repoed again. How about that? Yeah! So there's that. First half of the show, of course, brought to you by Beater Amplification. BEETER. Please, if you're a guitar player, check these guys out. These things are unfreaking believable. Hand-wired, 3 channels. You get a Metallica, old school Metallica tone, that crunch. Not like the over distortion, like processed distortion, but that classic crunch. And you get a second channel, you get this gorgeous AC/DC type tone, this gorgeous classic rock type tone. And then you can even clean it up and you just roll back on your volume, roll back on the gain a little bit, and you get that warm, just breaking up tone, but it's still kind of clean. And then you flip a switch and you've got that clean ass Fender tone, which is amazing. Just amazing. Check these guys out, beateramplification.com. If you are a bass player, they will be announcing very, very soon some of their bass amps. And I know Ross over at Beater was so excited because he's actually going to have a bass amp that's got a 21-inch speaker in it. Get ready for that. So check them out, beateramplification.com. Please, I'm going to get to the other mentions here before we go to break here pretty quick. John Palumbo Design. Need a website, you need a logo, you need anything like that, hit up John Palumbo Design. John is an amazing man. Proud to call him a friend, and he does amazing work. So hit him up, John Palumbo Design, or if you need anything laser engraved, check out aplasers.com. Oh, pardon me. Laser engraving at its finest. These guys can even laser engrave a hot dog bun, and I've seen them do it, and it is fucking amazing. These guys are great. They are based out of central Minnesota. You can order shit on their website, the aplasers.com. You can order it online if you need something special. Or, if you're up in that area, which I know I do have a lot of listeners up there, you can find them at a lot of gun shows, laser engraving sidearms and rifles and all that shit. They're great, man. aplasers.com. I love those guys, Ryan and his whole crew over there. Freaking great. What else? Do we have any other news? It's Thanksgiving. Make sure you hug your family. Tell your family that you love them. I am not back home. I am here in Los Angeles in beautiful downtown Burbank. Not making it back home this year. Why? Because it's fucking cold. And it would just be me and my mom. Which isn't a bad thing. I love my mom to death. I can see some old friends, but I can do that in the summertime. We can do something special in the summertime when it's warm up there. I'm a giant pussy. I think a lot of you know that already. So there is that. So here's what we're going to do. I am going to take a short little break. Got a couple other spots to get to. And when we come back, I will bring you a Big John Murray, Monsters of Rock Crew's family member. You know him from the Rock of Love. You know him. He's a wrestling guy now. He's in the wrestling, doing the wrestling thing. And he's a Marine. You can't say former Marine because once a Marine, always a Marine. So he brings a lot of expertise into this this documentary. Like I said, if you have not seen The Smoking Gun, pause this thing right now because it's not live. So go ahead, pause it. Go watch The Smoking Gun on YouTube. Watch it for free. And then come back and listen to my interview with Big John Murray. I apologize about the audio quality. There was some breaking up on his end, but we just rolled with it and did the best that we can. So it is another fucking podcast. I do love you guys. And we'll be right back with Big John Murray talking about The Smoking Gun, the assassination of John F. Kennedy.
If you need to promote your band or business, or just want to stylize, personalize, or customize your ride, check out vid-decals.com. Want to create and customize your own stickers representing your band, or make your own bumper sticker? Vid Decals can do it. All stickers are printed on quality vinyl and can be placed on any flat surface. Stickers are an affordable way to promote your band or business. Go to vid-decals.com to get started. That's vid-decals.com. vid-decals.com.
RockstarLeatherworks.com is your home for badass rock and roll gear. Featuring 100% handmade leather bands, watches, cuffs, bracelets, and more, Rockstar Leatherworks has something for everybody. Whether you are going to the show or you are in it, you can find something to fit your needs. Choose from a variety of designs or create your own masterpiece. Their bands and watches are second to none. They also ship internationally. Who needs a stage to be a rock star? Check out RockstarLeatherworks.com.
Retro Arcade brings Minnesota and surrounding areas arcade games from the days gone by. All of those great games from pizza joints and arcades are available in cocktail units and custom machines. Dozens of favorites from your youth in one machine to complete your game room or man cave. Retro Arcade also sells and services your favorite pinball machines. Find them at facebook.com/80arcade. That's facebook.com/80arcade. Retro Arcade. Your youth is just one click away.
I wanted to bring in somebody. I wanted to bring in a ballistics expert to talk about this Kennedy doc called The Smoking Gun, and I'm like, well, shit, this is so short notice. Big John, my good buddy, is a fucking Marine. I'm not ever going to say former Marine, because once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine. And
hell yeah,
he knows his way around fucking guns. I had no idea that he was a Kennedy nut like me. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to another fucking podcast, Big John Murray. Good day, sir.
What's up, big boy?
Oh, nothing, man. I think last time I saw you, we were on the front of a boat in a windstorm, recreating...
Doing karaoke.
No, wait. Recreating the Titanic pose.
Oh, my God, that's right. I forgot about that. That's right.
Oh, my God.
That was awesome.
Oh, dude, it was great. The pictures turned out like shit, but it doesn't matter because it was fucking great.
At least it conveys a message.
Right, exactly. So there's this documentary called The Smoking Gun, and I sent you the link. You watched it, and it's by... an Australian detective his name is Colin McLaren, and he investigates the JFK assassination using ballistics expert Howard Donohue's evidence that he had, this is all new to me when I watched this, that he had been doing back in the 70s, I believe.
Yep.
And it was, the last time I talked about Kennedy, we talked about the one that made it all tie to George Bush. And it was it was interesting. It was like far-fetched, but it was interesting. But this is like the one that I watch and go, it all makes sense.
It does. Absolutely 100%.
And we were talking a little bit before I brought you on, though, and you said I didn't know this, that you had been studying Kennedy for a very long time.
Absolutely. You know what? I think it's one of those things that obviously, I wasn't born in that time, but it's something that really, since childhood, has compelled me. Because especially after I got into the Marines, and you said ballistics expert. I don't know about an expert. I just know how to do what I'm told to do.
Right. Well, yeah, but you know a lot more about guns than I do.
Having the experience that I have, having the experience that I have, and knowing trajectories, how much wind, heat, everything. There's so many factors to play into a pinpoint shot. You have to calculate wind, you have to calculate heat, you have to calculate distance, you have to calculate the round that you're using. Everything goes into play. And one of the things that has always intrigued me is the fact that, and I know that they touched on this in the documentary, The Smoking Gun. Everybody always claims that there was a shooter on the grassy knoll. I never was a big proponent of that, because anyone who has dealt with firearms, dealt with ballistics, dealt with what happens to a target, especially a human head, when it's hit with a projectile, if you ever notice the Zapruder film, the front right and back to the earlobe of Kennedy's head completely gets blown off.
Right.
Therefore, the exit, that would not be an exit or an entrance round.
Okay.
If it came from the right and front where the grassy knoll was, the back of his head on the left-hand side would have blown out.
Okay.
Now, another big aspect of this is the fact that Lee Harvey Oswald was using an old Italian bolt-action rifle. To get off 3 shots in 5 seconds is damn near impossible, especially at a moving target with 15-mile-an-hour west-to-east winds and everything like that. Plus what they found in his weapon was full metal jacket rounds.
Yes.
Full metal jacket rounds do not explode. They're meant to go in and come out the same way. They're meant to incapacitate a soldier to get him off the battlefield. They're not a high death rate round.
Right. And
so,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, and that's one thing that they do talk about when they get into the ballistics and the forensics of this whole thing is that, because they even, a lot of people say, well, yeah, you shoot a melon, it's going to blow up. Well, they proved that they were wrong, because they use the exact same, they use the exact same round that Oswald used, and then they use the exact same round that would have been in the AR-15. Which we'll get to in a little bit, and the Oswald round went straight through the melon, no explosion. The AR-15 exploded the back of the melon, just like you're explaining.
Absolutely, and the weird thing is now here's the whole thing on. Everybody talks about this magic bullet, the single bullet. Mm-hmm. When Connolly turns to his right, a Full Metal Jacket round. Everybody's talking about it. It went in, made a 90-degree turn, made another 45-degree turn, came back out, went through his ribs into his wrist, or through his wrist into his leg. Mm-hmm. That is absolutely 100% not how that happened.
Right.
And I've known this for a very long time, and they did discuss this on the show. But I was lucky enough to be, and I didn't even know it at the time. I was on tour with Poison about 3 in the morning. About 3 in the morning, we were in Dallas, Texas, and I just couldn't sleep for some reason. And I'm out walking around, and all of a sudden I got this weird feeling like I'd seen where I was before. I was like, wait a minute, what the hell? Why does this look familiar? And I started paying attention, and I realized that I was actually in Dealey Plaza.
Oh, wow.
So it was the weirdest thing because having been in the Marines and having done what I had done, I kind of started, even though I was always intrigued by it, I got a first-hand look at this. Mm-hmm. And the 6th floor window on the book depository building is permanently left open. It's on display.
Right.
And so I'm kind of looking around and I'm going, and there's an X in the street where the Kennedy's fatal headshot occurred. I don't know if it's painted on there, if it's somehow it stays on there. But I stood. It was obviously 3 in the morning. There's not a whole lot of traffic, so I walk out in the middle of that street, and I start looking around, and I'm like, and granted, I'm no expert, but I do know how to do shots like that, like Oswald was supposed to have done.
Correct.
And I started looking, and I'm like, there's absolutely no freaking way that he could have pulled this off alone.
Right.
Now I say alone because I do believe that he was involved 100%.
As well do I.
What I don't buy is the fact that he got 3 shots off within 5 seconds, 6 seconds, on a bolt-action rifle. And another thing that bothers me is the fact that inside his round was Full Metal Jacket casings. Mm-hmm. Now, a Full Metal Jacket does not explode. Correct. It goes right through, like you were talking about with the melon. Mm-hmm. Then I started, and I did not know about this. I knew who he was. I never knew that there were pictures. I really, until last night, watching that show, I never knew that there were pictures of him holding that AR-15 in that car because I didn't know AR-15s were used then.
Right, and who you're referring to is it George Dickey?
George Hickey or Secret, whatever his name is.
Yeah, Secret Service man. He was in the car directly behind Kennedy.
Exactly. Now, the weird thing is I've done a lot of reading on this because his name kept popping up. Mm-hmm. And if you notice in the documentary, his story changed as opposed to everybody else's with the Warren Commission.
Correct.
That I know Secret Service agents. I mean, I know people that have worked in the Secret Service. Luckily, I've met them throughout the years. Mm-hmm. And they are never in a position where they have to grab a weapon, cock it, chamber around, and then shoot. They always have one in the chamber. Mm-hmm. So when he said that he grabbed the weapon off the floor, cocked it, chambered around, and then he was ready to, and then took the thing off of safety and put it on single shot. That right away, I was like, whoa, you're full of shit.
Right.
Because they always have one ready. I mean, you don't have time to sit there and dick around if you're guarding the president.
Exactly.
To sit there, chamber around, and I mean, it's reactive. Mm-hmm. So for him to say that he had to chamber around, etc., was the first thing that caught me off guard. The second thing is, and I read about this, I think about 6 years ago. This was his first assignment in detail with the president. Usually he was doing something else. He was a young kid. Uh-huh. He was new. Everybody was out drinking the night before. Yep. And I don't know if he filled in for somebody or if he was placed in a different position, but this is the first time in his career that he had an opportunity to be that close to the president, not to mention holding the firearm.
Right.
So when I look at this picture, there's a picture that's kind of blurry, but it shows him holding it. Mm-hmm. And if you notice on the picture, the muzzle of it is facing exactly where President Kennedy was, just a little bit higher and to the right.
Oh, wow. I didn't even notice that.
Anybody who has ever shot those weapons knows that when you fire it, it jerks up and to the right.
Okay.
And their positioning would have made complete sense for everyone to say that they saw smoke coming from the grassy knoll because a 15-mile-an-hour wind, if he shoots one round, that smoke's going to immediately go from there to his lake, which is where the grassy knoll was. And no one, if Oswald fired those shots in that fatal head wound from that 6-story window with a 15-mile-an-hour wind west to east, there is no way in hell anybody on the ground would have smelled gunpowder. None.
Exactly. And they talk about that in detail too. There was so many. This is the thing that I loved about this documentary is there's so many documented interviews that the police had did that never got turned into the Warren Commission, and all these people were talking about how they were at ground level and they smelled gunpowder.
Exactly. That and if you remember, now like I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I did say that I didn't think that Oswald was alone. I do think that he was involved, but if you remember, Oswald was a Marine too. Now,
yes, he was.
I think he was in supply or something like that, which means he wasn't a grunt that shoots his weapon all the time.
Right.
Nerves, adrenaline, everything like that are going to play a factor in this. So, do I think that he had a part in it? Absolutely. But there's a reason he kept saying, "I'm a patsy, I'm a patsy, I'm a patsy." It's because he knows damn good and well that he fired 2 shots.
Right.
But neither one of them were the headshot.
Right, exactly.
Which he knew somebody else did.
Well, and that's what they talk about in the film is how he the first shot missed. It hit the ground. And there's witnesses documented saying they saw a bullet ricochet off the ground. I mean, obviously not in slow motion, but saw that happen.
It hit the one guy over by the overpass. It hit him in the face.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. There's contemplation on whether there was a 4th shot or not.
Okay.
Which my belief is I don't think there was.
No, I don't think so either.
I think what happened was when that Full Metal Jacket casing hit the ground, that busted, and I think a piece of it hit a guy in the face over by the bridge.
Okay.
But I don't necessarily take that into account either. Me personally, what I think it was when Kennedy got a headshot, I think it was skull matter that hit him, not the bullet.
Okay. Well, that would make sense. Well, and another thing too that they talk about, which I found very, very interesting. They said, they found 3 shell casings, but one of them was very far away from.
Yeah, one's a plug. They call it a plug round.
Right. Exactly. And
I didn't know about that. A lot of grunts do that. Yeah, a lot of grunts do that because what they do is they keep one in there to keep dirt and debris from getting into the barrel and causing a misfire.
Correct.
A lot of times what I did, because we were over in the desert in Somalia and shit, I put condoms over the tip of my barrel so dirt couldn't get in that way.
Oh, wow. Well, hey, at least they were getting used.
Exactly. So, and I'm not the only one. I actually got that idea off other Marines. But
okay.
There's so many inconsistencies with what has been put out there, and you talk to any Marine, you talk to anybody who's been in the Army, anybody who has actually dealt with weapons and trajectories and ballistics and things that they have to do, especially grunts, Army Airborne, Navy SEALs, Marine Corps in general. Anybody who's ever fired a weapon and hit a target knows that if you watch that Zapruder film, there is no way in hell that fatal headshot came from 6 degrees up, 300 feet back on the 6th floor, hit him in the back of the head and blew out the upper right portion of his head. It's not conceivable.
Right. And then one thing going back to the magic bullet really quick, one thing that they do explain is that the back seat where Kennedy was elevated. So
exactly, it was elevated, and Connolly sat inside. Their seats are squished together.
Yep.
So I think they call them jump seats or whatever.
Yeah.
And when he turned to the right, it gave a perfect trajectory from Kennedy's neck through Connolly's shoulder or ribs into his wrist and into his left leg. The thing never turned, and that is consistent with a Full Metal Jacket round.
Correct. Correct.
If you take any other round, be it 22, 5.56, ball, NATO, anything, when they hit something, they mushroom.
Mm-hmm.
A Full Metal Jacket round is meant to stay in that long. I know that they've shown pictures of the round, and you can actually see on the round where it hit bone because there's a chip out of the top corner of it.
Correct.
That's the way they're supposed to look. If you look at the back of it, it's misaligned. It's a little bit flattened because it hit bone.
Mm-hmm.
that's a real probability that one round did all that damage.
Right,
you know?
right.
Did Oswald fire that shot? I do believe yes. But he did not. There's no way in God's green earth or hell that he shot that fatal shot.
And
the ballistics just don't add up.
Right. And for anybody following that has not seen this documentary, basically what they explain is that Dickie, who is in the car behind him, picks up that gun when he hears the gunshot or hears the shots from Oswald, and as he stands up, they hit the gas. And he falls.
Lost his balance.
He lost his balance, gun goes off, boom. Kennedy's dead.
And you know as well as I do, I'm not a big anti-government or disestablishmentarianism person, but the government covers shit up. And can you imagine the negative feedback or the repercussions if the truth actually came out that a Secret Service agent that wasn't even supposed to be there fucked up and shot Kennedy in the back of the head?
And that's the bottom line. It's like it was an accident. And going into the conspiracy thing, that's where the conspiracy is, where the government covers up the accident.
Well, absolutely, and that's where Jack Ruby came in, because Jack Ruby was a known gambler, prostitution ringleader, had connections with the mob. So what they did was if you think like a criminal and you think like like let's say a mob leader or someone who's got something to hide, bank robber or whatever. What you want to do is when the heat starts coming on, you want to get rid of all ties.
Right.
So what does the government do? They say, okay, Jack, listen, you're being brought up on federal charges, blah, blah, blah. Now, remember, Jack Ruby was in prison, too, right after this.
Okay. Yes, he was.
So they said, okay, so here's what we're going to do. Instead of life, you're going to get 20 years. But here's what you got to do for us.
Kill the patsy.
Oswald started running his mouth. I'm a patsy. I didn't do this. And there's so many inconsistencies. If you look at the government's evidence against Oswald, there's a picture of him holding a rifle in his backyard. Now, this was taken at 3 p.m. You take a picture. What they did was they took another picture, same house, same everything, at 3 p.m, and they had somebody else standing there. The shadows are the exact opposite. So don't think that things weren't photoshopped back then either.
Wow.
Meaning the shadow that would have come on Oswald at 3 o'clock on this photo with him holding the weapon would have been more like 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
There's so many inconsistencies with this thing. It's I personally believe it's going to be a dying question, and I don't think it's ever going to come out. But when they did release the Warren Commission report, there was still, I think, 700 or 1,000 something pages that were either blacked out or had not been released. There's a lot of photos of evidence, x-rays and stuff that have disappeared. And ironically, 30 years later, they opened up the case again. And they wanted to get copies and photos of all of the evidence that was sequestered by the Secret Service in the autopsy rooms, in witness statements and testimonies, et cetera, and put stuff from the Warren Commission that they wanted to reopen this case as a cold case. Ironically, I think it was like 2 weeks or a month earlier, the FBI just happened to dispose of the file.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it was gone.
Oh, my God.
Oh, we just got rid of that. We figured it was a closed case. That'll never be a closed case.
Why would you get rid? Yeah, exactly. Why would you get rid of the Kennedy files? I mean,
exactly. Well, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that they did that just never added up. Bobby Kennedy and the Kennedy estate wanted John's brain. Okay. That disappeared. Nobody knows where it went and I think one of the reasons why is because of the bullet fragments, because it's a frag round.
Right.
That when it hits, it explodes. There's shards inside the brain. Okay. That would completely disprove that Oswald shot a Full Metal Jacket round, and that was a headshot.
Do you buy into the theory that Bobby found out what happened and that's why he was killed?
Oh, I've heard that before, and I don't. I think what I think is Kennedy was killed. Now, this might be a little bit of a conspiracy thing.
Okay.
But Kennedy was going to be killed anyway. I still believe that LBJ and the military and the government had something to do with him dying, whether it be in Dallas or whether it be on the plane ride home. I think circumstances arose where they could do it, and there would be no question, and they had Oswald. Okay. I'm not even for sure that happened because the guy fell. I think it was just an opportunity. Boom, grab the weapon, boom, there it is. It's done.
Okay.
Because he was going to die because he was going to pull troops out of Vietnam. And, of course, war creates revenue and jobs. The military did not want to get out of Vietnam. They wanted to go over there and completely be boots on the ground involved. Mm-hmm. And I'm a firm believer that he was going to die anyway because of that, because of the civil rights movement. I mean, look at that time. He's working with Martin Luther King to create the civil rights movement and everything else. He's actually working with him. A lot of people did not like that.
Right.
I mean, the good old boys network was up in arms about that.
Right. Yeah, people forget that it wasn't. It's not. It's not like it is today.
Oh no, hell no. Well, the thing about it was Kennedy had John F. Kennedy had an idea. He knew that he was going to die. He actually made a statement one time that it was something in regards to, if this is my last time speaking to you, like he knew something bad was going to happen. He knew he pissed off a lot of people, and I'm sure he was getting death threats. Now, Bobby, on the other hand, I don't know if it's because he found out anything. I think that was just, I don't know what. I mean, there's so much that I don't know about the whole situation behind Bobby, other than the fact that he was running for president, and there was a lot of disregard for the Kennedy family at that time. I mean, Sirhan could have been just a random hitman, or there could have been some agenda behind it. I'm not sure. Well, I just find it rather odd that Bobby, of all people, who's running for president, and his brother 8 years earlier just got his head blown off, didn't have more protection than ice in the kitchen.
Right, exactly. And well, it's funny you talk about how you Kennedy thought he was going to die, that you thought LBJ was actually going to end up doing it anyways. Because isn't there audio, or from what I've heard, is that Jackie had ran into a room and LBJ was in there, and he goes, and I think she had said something like, well, you did it, or are you happy now, or something to that effect.
Yeah, it's something like, are you happy now?
Wow.
See, there was a lot. LBJ, believe it or not, I don't know how much research you've done on LBJ. He was probably, including the current administration, he was probably the worst president we've ever had.
Right.
I mean, he was a douchebag.
Right.
He had no business being in that office. And, you remember there's a few things that happened afterwards. Obviously, we became more in-depth. First thing LBJ says is, I will not send American boys 10,000 miles to fight a war that somebody else should fight. 2 days later, he sends over 10,000 troops.
Right.
There was a lot of reasoning and motivation for the government to get rid of Kennedy.
And see, now, damn it, you got my conspiracy wheel turning again with the with the Secret Service guy who had never worked with the president before, and boom, now God, thank you, John. Fucker.
It's weird. I'm not a conspiracy theorist by any means, but I do know that the government has ways of shutting people up.
Right.
And when you're in a situation where you've got the next 10 years of war, which is going to create millions and millions of dollars in revenue, even though the American public did not want to be there.
Right.
It did create a lot of jobs, and it just seems like, excuse me, it seems like a lot of things came to play because of Kennedy's death that were all controlled by the government.
Oh man.
It's just, there's a lot of things that he did that pissed off a lot of people. I mean, if you remember right, Kennedy was a big proponent and instigator of the Welfare Act.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
I mean, you get a lot of people out there that, hey, wait a minute, you're going to take our money? I'm a 40-hour-a-week worker at GM, and you're going to use our tax dollars to pay for people who don't want to work? What the fuck?
Right. Right, and people are still pissed off about that.
Exactly. I agree with him, but I'm not going to go out and blow somebody away for it.
Right, exactly. You see pictures of people in fucking like Baltimore dancing when they get their welfare check and having more kids, saying, "I don't have to work. I don't have to work." It's like, well, fuck you. Oh,
I wish somebody would fuck me and get me some free money.
Right, exactly. Fucking
I'd take a few for the team if it meant getting a couple grand a month.
Take a couple loads in the ass if I got a couple grand a month.
Exactly.
Oh, man. So back to the documentary again, because we can go off on conspiracies all fucking day. I'm going to send you that one about the Bushes, which is very, very interesting. I mean, obviously very far-fetched, but there's actually a lot of shit in there with the background of everybody that kind of makes it all make sense at the same time too, but not like this makes sense. Not like the smoking gun makes sense. So watching that, I mean, especially when they're doing the cover up part, how they would not let the autopsy happen in Dallas, even though if a murder happens, it has to the autopsy has to happen where that murder happened.
Absolutely.
And then they just let some schlub, like some random guy who's never done a fucking autopsy before, do the autopsy, correct?
Exactly. And he was a medical, what was he? He was a forensic pathologist, but he had never done an autopsy. And the weird thing is somehow, they talked about this in the documentary too, was when the hospital administrator came in and he looked at him and he said, "What?" And he goes, "What are you going to say?" And he goes, "What am I supposed to say?" He goes, "Keep your fucking mouth shut."
Right.
You're not going to say a word.
Right.
Because I think what happened was he brought information to them via the x-rays and everything else and said, "Look, this is consistent with something completely different as what's being portrayed."
Mm-hmm.
And he came in there and he said, "You keep your mouth shut." So I don't remember his name, but he was a hospital administrator, and he actually told the assistant to the medical examiner that he needed to keep his mouth shut, because I think he was a little bit afraid of what the hell the backlash was going to be if he started opening his mouth.
Right. And it's funny because they show like clips from those press conferences with the doctors, and all the preliminary ones, all of them said that the shot came from behind.
Absolutely. And is it Donahue? Is that his name? The guy that actually took the skull and manipulated it to the positioning of Kennedy's head? And he was like, "There's no way, this is not consistent," because the entry wound was in the lower left section of the head, and the exit wound, which is consistent with the flag round, is from the right temporal, right above the ear, through the temporal level, and up into the upper front lobe of the brain. And everything was just scrambled. A Full Metal Jacket round does not do that.
Right.
I mean, as an assassin back in the old days, and even now, the preferred method of killing someone was to walk up behind them with a 22 and shoot them right in the base of the skull, because a 22 round will bounce. It will deflect off the inside of the skull, and it will scramble their brains. They're dead. It does not. Like 9 out of 10 times, a 22 round will not exit a skull, because what it will do is it'll hit one side of it and bounce back and just ricochet back and forth like a pinball.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Great. Now you're giving people ideas.
I've done a lot of homework on these things, man. This is stuff that intrigued me for years.
Right. Well, I mean, that's why I'm glad I got you on now.
Oh, yeah. I could sit and talk about this for hours.
Well, obviously.
This is, it's one of those things where, it's an unfortunate thing that it happened.
Right.
And it's one of those things that will never, ever go away. And I don't think the truth is ever going to be told, because too many of the people that were involved are now dead.
Mm-hmm.
There is a guy in Joliet who claims that he was the third gunman. I don't believe him one bit. I think he's a dumbass.
Right.
One of the things about interrogations is that if you interrogate someone, if they lie, they'll never. A lot of times they'll look down or they'll look over you and up and to the right.
Uh-huh.
And the reason they do that is because they're kind of making up the story as they go. There's a lot of body body language that can be utilized when you're interrogating somebody. Sweat, eye movement, they cross their legs, cross their arms, cross their fingers, interlock their fingers. It's because they're getting a defensive mechanism going where they feel protected and they're not intimidated.
I see it on Wilco's every day.
Hell yeah.
And that usually just ends up with a "get off my stage." So,
yeah, exactly.
I found go ahead.
There's so many things that played into this. Oswald getting killed 2 days later.
Right.
There was a reason behind that, because Jack Ruby went to jail. I think what happened was he was confronted by a federal attorney and said, "Hey, listen, you're looking at federal charges. You're going to do 30 years off the record. You take care of this job for us, and you'll get 15 or 10, and you'll be eligible for parole in 5."
Mm-hmm.
Jack Ruby was never the same after this,
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got people like, what's his name? Bertrand in Louisiana. There's too many people that knew about this and knew that it was going to happen. I believe that it was going to. Now, here's the funny thing. I think it was immediately following Dallas, he was supposed to go to Louisiana. There's a guy down in Louisiana that the Oliver Stone movie focuses on. His name's Clay Bertrand.
Okay.
When questioned, he completely denied knowing anything, blah, blah, blah. But upon further investigation, they found out that he was linked up with the mob, Castro, pro-Castro people, and he and I can't remember his name, the role that Kevin Costner played. He uncovered a whole plot that was there to take out Kennedy. And they were going to Louisiana in either the next stop or they had just left from Louisiana and it never conspired. So,
and he was in he was in Houston the night before, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so it wasn't he was going to Houston then Louisiana. I found that that Bush documentary is called The Dark Legacy.
The Dark Legacy. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's interesting, but towards the end, it's like, where the hell is this going? It's like charts.
I know. It's like, did we get off focus here?
Right. So you have seen that one?
Oh yeah, absolutely. All those shows. I find it interesting, but I also find it educational because it's just like any other story. You can take bits and pieces and comprise a puzzle, and that's the truth.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just like with this Kennedy thing. If you look at the big picture, you're going to see Oswald who fired 3 shots. But if you start breaking it down, now here's a funny thing that I don't know if a lot of people who have followed the Kennedy assassination know about this, and it's been documented, but a lot of people don't ever bring it up. When you're a sniper or you're a sharpshooter, you have to have a left and a right perimeter.
Mm-hmm.
It's a field of fire. So you have to have a left echelon and a right echelon, and you need to know where, forward and back trajectory, where your cutoff points are.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a guy, if you look at this Zapruder film, November 22nd, 1963, it was like 50 degrees. He's wearing a long black trench coat. He's got a big dark black umbrella 2 feet above his head.
The umbrella guy, yeah.
Yeah. To me, that's something saying this is where your field of fire starts, and the bridge is the last thing you're going to see. So between that time, which is about, I think it was like 97 feet or something like that, you've got 97 feet to get off this shot. Me personally, I think it was. They tell Oswald this. Now, if you look at the Zapruder film, as soon as that car hits that guy with the black umbrella, the first shot's fired. Bang. There's speculation as to whether there was a 4th shot up on top of the hill. Nobody heard it. It never wound up. But it's like that car hits the guy in the black umbrella, bang. And then all of a sudden you hear bang. And then within like 0.3 of a second you hear bang. There is no way in hell in a bolt-action rifle you can do that. None.
Right.
So I think what it was they're letting Oswald know, hey, when the car hits here, you've got maybe 17 seconds, 15 seconds to get this shot off. He shoots, hits him in the neck. Everybody starts realizing, hey, this isn't happening. We're past the guy in the black coat. the guy in the back of the car that's been hired by whoever, one of them dead, says, okay, picks up the rifle. Oh, I accidentally slipped. Boom. Now it's done.
Oh, man.
I think he was put there as a backup, to tell you the truth.
So this whole accident theory is out the fucking window now.
Well, yeah. The thing about it is Ricky, as soon as that detail was over, he disappeared. He never worked on a detail again.
Well, you wouldn't think he would. He killed the president.
Exactly. But he just disappeared. But if you look at, and this is another thing that came up in a book. I don't know who wrote this book. If you look at FBI, Secret Service, but Secret Service payroll and government payroll, he remained on payroll for an additional 27 years.
Really?
Where the hell was he?
I don't know. Oh, obviously, see, and that's the thing. They show this, in the film too. Is like when that book was coming out, the book that you're talking about that names him, they contacted him via mail, and
yes, they did. That's right.
And he signed for the letters.
Yep.
So obviously it wasn't too far in hiding.
He filed a lawsuit, and I believe he actually won the lawsuit because there was never any hard evidence. It was just theory.
He filed the first lawsuit, but it was 2 years after the book came out and the statute of limitations had ran out.
Right.
But once
that's what it was.
Yeah, but once the paperback came out, then he refiled.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah. But I mean,
but yeah, this is a topic that I can sit and talk on forever.
Well, it looks like you'll be back again next October or next November.
Now, do you want to know? This is going to get me in a lot of trouble. Do you want to know what I think about Martin Luther King's assassination?
Yes, please. But indulge me.
I personally, now this is speculation, of course. But me personally, do you know, the first thing that I think is, Jesus, I'm scratching his name.
I don't know anything about the King assassination.
The guy that killed him, that they had in prison. I don't think he did it. And there's a reason why. The hotel in Memphis where Martin Luther King got shot, the funny thing is he got shot, and forensics went back there the next day to conduct an investigation.
Mm-hmm.
And within a matter of about 2 to 3 days, the bushes that were across from the hotel were completely cut down and gone.
Really?
Those bushes would have prevented whatever his name is, I can't think of his name, from shooting from where they said he shot at. I can't think of his name. Damn it.
I hope I can type MLK assassination. All right.
He just died a few years ago in prison.
James Earl Ray.
James Earl Ray.
Yep.
Yeah, and James Earl Ray, till the day he died in prison, said that he did not kill him. He was framed, and even the Martin Luther King family said, "We believe you," because there's some inconsistencies with that too. Do you know exactly where Martin Luther King was supposed to be standing? A minute and a half earlier, Jesse Jackson was standing, and he told him, "Why don't you stand here?"
Really?
Yes.
Holy fuck!
That came specifically from one of the people that were in the hotel room in Memphis.
Holy
fuck! Jesse Jackson was standing exactly where Martin Luther King was, and he switched places with him.
Holy fuck! You're flooring me right now.
No. I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for this. Don't think somebody won't be knocking on my fucking door by the end of the night.
Well, you better go in hiding on a boat.
I'm going to the safest place in Cincinnati right now. I'm going to a Jackal show.
Oh shit! That's right. You are going to Jackal tonight.
Yeah. I've been lucky enough to know Jesse and the guys for a long time. Since way before I was in music, working with Poison and Rat and everybody, they used to play at a club in Cincinnati that I worked at called Annie's, and we just, especially working with Poison and with some of the guys, we've done festivals and stuff, and Jesse and I have gotten, I'm not going to say close, we're just acquaintances, but whenever they come to town, I try to go as much as I can.
Well, that's great. You're still out there supporting everybody, you know?
Oh hell yeah!
And you don't have to wear a cape.
We're gonna have to discuss that monster cruise, because that has got to be done as far as wearing things.
Right. Well, did you get my text?
Which one?
The one about the single sling.
No, what about it?
Well, there's I don't want to ruin it on here, so I'll just send you the picture, via Facebook. But I texted you the picture of the what we need to do.
Okay.
Because it's a little bit different, but it's a little bit better.
Please tell me it's one of those ski bikini things or whatever.
You will see, and you will go, yes! Yes!
Okay.
Yes!
We're going to become the poster children for Monsters of Rock Cruise.
We are, and I can't wait. I cannot wait, dude. This is a lot of fun, and we'll have you on again next year. But I don't think there's any other documentary I can watch that we'll even have to talk about, because, I mean, unless something else comes out, because I think the Smoking Gun kind of fucking wraps it up into one big donut.
You know what? There are a lot. I was doing some research last night after watching it. I was looking it up on. There's a whole Facebook page dedicated to that.
Oh, of course.
And I'm going to tell you what, there are a lot of people out there who firmly believe that this is the case, that it was swept under the rug by the government because one of their agents screwed up.
Yeah. I mean, even when I posted the link, somebody commented, he goes, dude, everybody knows Dickie did it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the thing that flipped me out is I didn't know that they used AR-15s back then. I thought at that time it was just M16A1s or M1 Garands. I had no idea that they used fully automatic and semi-automatic AR-15s. I didn't even think those were around then.
Yeah, I'm not a huge. I mean, I've shot guns in my life. I've owned guns, but I would have had no idea.
I didn't either until I saw that picture, and I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
It's weird.
So that's the one thing. That's the one thing that really popped out at you in the film.
Absolutely, because they know what those are capable of firing. And in an M16A1, AR-15, you fire 5.56. And see, that's another thing. They're saying 7.62. AR-15s fire 7.62, M16s fire 5.56 ball NATO rounds. And all that means is that's just the ballistics and the specifications on the round itself.
Okay.
And one of the things that popped out the most is the fact that they showed this in the documentary. A Full Metal Jacket round is designed to where the entry wound will be 1 millimeter larger,
right,
than the round itself.
Mm-hmm.
This round was way smaller. Even the projectile itself, I think it was like a half degree smaller than what a Full Metal Jacket round would do.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take a 7.62 round and you put it up to it, which I'm surprised they didn't, if you take the projectile on 7.62 round, it matches identical.
Really?
Yes.
I did not know that. Well, didn't they take because what you're talking about too? They showed when they took the Full Metal Jacket round and they tried to stick it in the hole in the back of the head.
It did not fit.
It would not fit. It would not go in.
Right. And one of the reasons that happens is because that thing's traveling at such a high rate of speed, it expands. It gets hot and it expands.
Right.
So when it hits, it's going to be a millimeter to 3/4 to a millimeter larger, which means that round, especially the round that they recovered from the gurney, the single bullet, whatever, they try to stick that up to his head and it doesn't fit. No, something's wrong, because it would have been much wider, because that round would have been heated up and it would have caused an expansion in the metal.
Right.
And then when it cools down, it contracts again. So by all means, it should, even with it when it cools down and it contracts, it should be able to slide in and out.
Right, absolutely. But it wouldn't even fit. So there you go, folks. Big John Murray. You know him from the Rock of Love. You know him from the Monsters of Rock cruises. You know him from wrestling. Thank you, John. Of course, that interview was from a couple years ago, and it's still relevant today on the 55th anniversary of the assassination of John F. Kennedy. The Smoking Gun check that out, man. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It is pretty mind-blowing, as you probably heard in that interview. See you next week. Daryl Dwarf joining us, talking about his brand new book. Still working on Mr. Belding. Still working on Mike Dawson of the Adam Carolla Show. Don't forget all the social media at Real Izzy Presley. Buy T-shirts. You can donate to the show, izzypresley at yahoo.com. As you could tell from the beginning of the show, I need it. But seriously, again, thank you everybody for helping out. It's, like I said, mind-blowing, mind-numbing, embarrassing, and humbling. So thank you guys. We'll see you next week. Don't forget, what I lack in talent, I make up for in cock. See you in the morning on the Monsters of Rock, 10 a.m. Dash Radio, Monsters of Rock channel. Goodbye, everybody. See you next week.